Hey, Xiomy here. So today I wanted to do my best reads of 2018, and I wanted to have my top 10 of 2018, but the more I kept on adding to the list, the more I kept on noticing that it was growing. So I'm going to be having my top 18 of 2018. These books are in no particular order. So without further ado, let's get into this video. The first book that I'm going to be mentioning, I think like the first 5 books that I'm going to be mentioning are surprise reads, because I had a lot of surprise reads this year that I'm quite fond of. So the first one is going to be Want by Cindy Pong. This is such an immersive story that I love from beginning to end. Here we also have a dystopian slash sci-fi story that is set in Taipei, Taiwan, and the characters, the main characters, the side characters, all of them just gripped me and I just freaking adored them. And here we have a story that we have two different classes. We have the rich and the poor, and these people have to live in these environmental suits just because our environment has been ravaged by pollution, so therefore they have to wear these suits in order to survive. Obviously the poor live for short periods of time and the rich live for long periods of time. So we follow a group of characters that are willing to stand up to save their world, to save their planet, to save their place of being, because they love their island, they love where they live, and they want to better their situation. There's also a lot of political intrigue, some things that are, scheming around the edges, and I just love this story and the journey that they go in. It was something that was really immersive, and these side characters are just so freaking amazing. They made me root for them. You also have a female on female romance. It was just a beautiful story to be told. It dealt with serious topics, so that's something that I have to admit that was really intriguing. And these characters, like I said, I rooted for them. I loved it from beginning to end. It's action packed in certain moments. It slows down when it needs to slow down. It was just such a wonderful story to read, and I cannot wait for the sequel to see what else is it that the author does with these characters, because I've been waiting for 2 years for the sequel, so it better deliver. But I just need more people to read this book and just fangirl with me, because it was just such an incredible story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because there were a few things that I really didn't agree with, especially with the main characters' decisions. But overall, it was an incredible read. I just loved all the characters. I loved the vibe that it had to it, and also the fact that it made me want Korean and or Asian food, because I was like salivating when I was reading a certain part, because I was like, oh my god, this sounds too freaking good. But this one, highly recommend. The next one is also a surprise read, and that is Instructions of a Second-Hand Heart by Tamsin Murray. This is a story that deals with grief, that deals with loss, that deals with self-discovery, and it's just a strong and impactful read. It was heart-wrenching. I cried. I literally cried. And it was just, even though it was a sad story, it was a beautiful story to be told, because here we follow Neve, and her twin brother has died, so his heart goes into Johnny. Johnny is the other character that we follow along the journey. And Johnny, at one time, it's like he forgets who he is just because he has this heart. He thinks he has to act like her brother, but along the way he discovers that just being himself is all that's perfect, and that's all he needs. So it is a story of self-discovery, and also of second chances, and also visualizing other people by accepting something that was part of your brother. It was just such a beautiful story to be told. It immersed me from beginning to end. It also has like little comic strips throughout the story, because there's a character that loves to draw, and it was beautiful. It was strong, because I was just crying, like I said, but it was just such an important story to be told. And I think I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, because there was one little thing that I didn't like, but overall it was just such an amazing read. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is, and this one was definitely a surprise, and that is Warcross by Marie Lu. Surprised because I did not enjoy The Young Elite, so I went into this one with little to no expectations, but I was just blown away with the main character, side characters, especially our main character. She has rainbow colored hair, she has tattoos, she feels like a badass, she's a hacker, and she is a badass, at her times. I just loved her. There were a few things that, I thought that she could have improved, but she learns throughout her journey that family is important. Family isn't the ones that necessarily you grow around, but you can make your own family. But this was just this interesting story. I love the side characters so much. I rooted for them. I wanted nothing but great things to happen to them. And I have to admit that the antagonist, the villain in this story, and also that plot twist that happens, they both just made my jaw drop, because I was not expecting these things. There were a few hints that I was like indicating towards something, but I wasn't expecting it for it to be that. But it was just such a surprise read. I loved it from beginning to end, especially the Warcross part, you know, that game that they are immersive within, and you know, the aspects of that game. I loved it. The black market situations that they had to deal with, everything was just such an incredible story. There were a few things that were questionable, but overall I really enjoyed this. If I'm not mistaken, I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to continue with the next installment, because this one captivated me. I can't wait to see what the other one does. But I do know that the other one changes from like a sort of sci-fi story into a dystopian. That's what I've heard. I don't know, I have to read it per se, but I loved this story overall and all the characters as well. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This is my first psychological suspense thriller, and it delivered. I'm not going to criticize it on anything because like I said, this is my first one, so I don't know how a psychological suspense thriller works, but it was interesting, it was immersive. I was just having goosebumps throughout certain scenes, and the chapters are really small, so you're like, oh, just one more page, or just one more chapter, and next thing you know, you're like halfway through. So it is a quick read, but there are moments that I had to stop because, like I said, it gave me goosebumps. I was not expecting certain things to happen, and this book like brought to my mind like movies like The Good Son. It also reminded me of Tony Donoso from NCIS, because you know, Tony Donoso is always making references to movies. In this book we also have a lot of references to black and white movies, so I have to admit that it did make me like intrigued, like also curious for black and white movies. I've never seen one, so I'm kind of intrigued to actually pick one up. But I really have to admit that I really enjoyed following Anna, what was her name, right? Anna Fox, through her story, how she suffers from agoraphobia, and also like what was it that caused her to be in this anxiety attacks. And also she can't step out of her house no matter what she does. She takes like certain mechanisms in order for her to actually like step in and try and do these things. But you know, she is a peeping Tom, I'm not gonna deny it. But one day she's obsessed with her new neighbors, but she does see that somebody has killed somebody within her neighbors, and this is where the story sets in. Especially like she does deal with mental issues, so are the cops going to believe her? That was something that really did infuriate me, because just because she's going through these losses within her life, and also that twist of what really happened, because I was expecting one thing, but I was just like blown away with what really happened, because I was like, oh my god, no wonder this woman is traumatized, because I don't think I would have survived something like that. Let's just admit, like what she went through is commendable, and it was just so heart-wrenching, because I was crying when the revelation of what really happened was told. I was completely crying. But it also deals with that fact that, you know, she is dealing with mental issues. So is she really telling the truth? Are people going to believe her for what's happening? Because all clues point to the fact that she's lying. So obviously, to get to know these things, to get to know what really happened, is such an interesting journey, and I cannot wait to watch the movie adaptation of this one, because if it's as good as the book, I'm sold. I'm just gonna be lost for words, and I have to admit that I really did enjoy this. I think I gave it 4.5 or 4 out of 5 stars, somewhere along the lines, or I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really don't remember right now, but this is such an incredible read. It is thrilling, it is impactful, in the sense that I was just having goosebumps from beginning to end. So I freaking adored it. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. This is also another story that I was not expecting to love as much as I did. I went into this with high expectations because I've been anticipating this book for quite a while, and it delivered. You also follow a diverse cast of characters. It gave me some instances like a bit, not too much, but a bit of Six of Crows vibes, especially with the characters, because we do have morally great characters, and what is it that they're going to eventually do, because we do have these people who have certain powers, certain magical abilities, but there is a brink in which they cannot pass, because once they pass this brink, they either die or they lose notion of who they are as people, and they slowly deteriorate. I have to admit that following the journey, because we do have time traveling aspects to this book, because we have our main character who has to go back to the past and also try and discover this book, that this book is the one that's going to save him. Also the plot twists that are happening, because we have these characters that are working for their own agenda at the end of the day. You know, they're trying to side with one another, but you know, let's be real, at the end of the day, they're working for their own agenda within the world that they're in, and also the secrets that they have. It was just such an interesting story, and we do follow 6 characters throughout the story. We get more from some than others, but I just have to admit that the mythology woven within this story, the Egyptian vibes that we got within the story, just everything per se was really incredible. I loved it from beginning to end. The writing is incredible, the characters are memorable, and I can't wait to continue in this series. The second one already came out, I just haven't been able to pick it up. I did order it on Amazon, so I can't wait to actually read it and just go back into this world, because it was just that freaking good, man. I need more people to read that. And what I'm noticing is that a lot of people are picking it up more, so I'm like, yes, finally I can fangirl with other people about this book, because it was that good. The next one that I'm going to be mentioning is one that I took, I think it was like Thanksgiving week, and was it Thanksgiving week? Oh no, it was a tome topple. I know it was a tome topple. I don't remember when was it, but it was a tome topple, and I read these books completely. I read the first, the second, and third, because it is a trilogy, and the third was just it was just a satisfying conclusion to everything that happened. And I'm not gonna say much because of spoilers, but I have to praise this book because it was that good, and that is Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. The new characters that are being introduced in this story were ones that I really have to admit that I enjoyed. I love the play on words that they had. I love how other characters are introduced, certain things that happen. Ella is always going to be my favorite character. I just freaking adored her. I loved Hannah. I have to admit that Hannah was dealing with a lot of grief, especially with what happened in Gemini, but these characters were so amazing in this one, and I just rooted for them. There were some things that I was not expecting. We also have other characters, or characters per se, who develop certain feelings, and you know, it's intriguing to see what they did with these characters that on a normal basis I would not root for these characters at all, especially with what has transpired, but I cannot help to understand their motives and to genuinely love these characters. And I know it's wrong for me to say that I love a certain specific character in this series, but I do, because in this one we understand his motives a lot more. And like, these audiobooks are incredible. Highly recommend these books. And I know Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff has said that they've already done this format, and I don't think that they want to go back into it, but I would love for them in the near future, if they actually do another, at least a duology. I'll be comfortable with a duology, you know, I'll accept it in this format, because it is a different way of telling a story, and it is one that really captivated me, and I have to admit it was a smart choice for them to include a book this way. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because it was just an amazing conclusion to what I was expecting. And even though there were a lot of things that were hit to the gut, because I was like, oh no, these, oh please, but then I was like, wait, he had this, so that means that he's okay. And I was rooting with these characters from beginning to end, and that final journey that they go in, where they, you know, test certain people, was just something that it was good. I'm not gonna deny that there are some things that are convenient, but I obviously did not care, because I was just rooting for these characters and I wanted nothing but good things for them. So yeah, now I know why people say that it was a good conclusion. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is one that I've noticed that as of late has a bit of a controversy, but I really did enjoy this one, and that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I love everything about this in a few senses. There are 2 things that I really did enjoy, but because of spoilers I'm not going to say. But there's one thing that I did not like, and that is the romance between 2 specific characters. It's something that I really didn't enjoy from the beginning, and that's something that the more I think about it, the more I want to chop down an entire star, because I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and the more I think about that romance, the more I want to give it 4 out of 5 stars. I have to admit that the religion aspects to this and the world building, the characters per se, were really intriguing. Amari is one of my favorite characters. Like, Zili was a really good character, but Amari is one of my favorite characters, just because we saw the growth in Amari, and she ended up being such a badass in my eyes, and I loved her character arc so much, and also like who she ended up falling in love with, because there's a slow burn romance happening between these characters, and I root for that one. I also have to admit that I really enjoyed Zili's brother. I think his name is pronounced Zane, because he was the one who actually told Zili the truth, especially in certain aspects, and I was like, you go boy, you tell her off, because what the hell is she even thinking about? Zili is a character that really did annoy me in certain aspects, but overall I enjoyed it. The ending, I would love to have like a little bit more explanation, because I think that the ending had like a rush to it. It was something that I have to admit that was, I hope that this does get explained in the other books, because it was too rushed. rushed. But overall, I enjoyed the opening. I enjoyed the middle. There were moments that slowed down that I have to admit that I loved, and there were moments that picked up when I needed them to pick up. So her journey, like going and finding these artifacts, was something that was incredible in order to save her people and also save the magic system within, you know, her world. I just have to admit that it was something that captivated me, and I loved it, and I can't wait to see what else does the author do with this series. There are some things that could be expanded on, some things that can be fixed, but as a debut novel, I thought that it was really well done. And aside from the pathetic romance, everything else was just spot on. I have to admit that it was really, really good. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about are also like surprise reads, but one was sent to me by the author, and that is Throne of Lies by Sarah Sikora. This is a character-driven story, so if you don't like character-driven stories with a plot that's really sort of MIA, but you know, there are aspects of it there, but it is, you know, it does have a slow pace to it, so I'm gonna admit that. But I have to admit that the world building was really intriguing. The characters were ones that I really enjoyed, and here we follow our main character that's from the kingdom of Northwind, if I'm not mistaken, which is the human aspect of this world, because there are different kingdoms, and I can't wait to see what is it that the author is going to do, like if she's going to delve into these other kingdoms, because there were ones that are really intriguing. But here we follow Amethysta as she discovers some things about her birthright, and also things that she really doesn't want to know, but she has to learn in order to discover what is happening with her, because she does have these latent powers that develop and she doesn't know how to control them. There's also a character, I forgot his name, I think his name was Ark. Oh my freaking lord, was it Ark? I think Ark was one that I really also did enjoy. Yes, I did enjoy Ark and Soren. They have some weird names in this story, but there were ones that I really did enjoy. Like, I love these characters going on this journey with her. I have to admit that the main character's escapades at times are short-lived, because, you know, the woman is always in the palace, so she doesn't know how to have these survival instincts, so they are short-lived. But overall, it was interesting to go on this journey with her, and I can't wait to see what else is going to happen within this story, because that epilogue gave room for a lot of things that might transpire, also secrets that might be happening, even more action that's going to be woven within the story. And also there's a specific part of the story that I'm really intrigued by if these people get expanded a lot more on, because right now I can't remember their name, but I think it's the Forgotten. I'm pretty sure it's the Forgotten, but I like highlight the hell out of this book because like this was sent to me, so obviously I did a lot of highlighting to it, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because there are a few things that I didn't root for, especially like I'm okay with one of the romance that might happen, but I was shipping her with somebody else. But overall, this was very interesting read, so I highly recommend it. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. Oh my freaking lord, this was also a surprise read. I heard the audiobook for this one, and the audiobook is just so gorgeous. I loved it from beginning to end. And here we follow our main character that deals with loss, that deals with, there's also grief, but also like discovering a new family. And here we have a world that's also incredible, because here we have these people, I even forgot their names because these names are like, let's just say these names are crazy, but they always give the firstborn to the witch. And I don't even understand, like in the beginning, why was it that they gave this baby to the witch, because not even she understands why the baby is being left in the forest for her. But she takes them, she gives them food from stars, and she takes them to a neighboring village. And in this neighboring village, they treat them with love and respect, and you know, they grow there throughout their entire lives. But there's one day that she picks up a baby, and instead of feeding her stars, she feeds her moon power. So once she feeds her moon power, this girl develops powers and also magical abilities, and there's this journey that goes into it. I loved all these characters that were cute, and also the little tiny dragon. Oh my god, he was precious. I loved him. It was just a beautiful story from beginning to end. The main character was a little bit like a hothead, but I was like, you need to calm down. But obviously she's a little girl, she's 13, so we follow her along the road, and I just have to admit it was a beautiful story. It was heart-wrenching at times, it was beautiful, and also that ending. And there was a moment where I was like, okay, I think it's this what's happening, and I was right. And then it was just, even though I guessed that huge plot twist, it wasn't something that took away from my enjoyment, because I really did love it. I would admit that there were moments that I really wanted for further expansion to happen, but this is middle grade, so I get the idea why they did it. But overall, it was interesting. I gave it, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars or 4 out of 5 stars, one of those two. But now I know why is it that people rave about this book, because it's really doggone good, you know? The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Clues. This was also another one that I went into it with high expectations. There were some things that I was just really okay with. Weren't things that really did blow my mind, especially the main character. I thought there were some things that was just like, ugh, what? But overall, I'm really intrigued to continue the story, because I have to admit that I did love the religious aspect to it. I loved the world building per se, and the fact that, you know, even though there are shades of other books within this story, I quite didn't care because I enjoyed it a lot. And it tells you a lot of things. It's also how I don't like the way she named her staff, because you have to name your staffs, and these staffs augment your magical abilities. Porridge, I think it was, that she named their staff, and I was like, oh, woman, like what? But the world building, the monsters that are within this story are really, really intriguing, and they did captivate me. So, you know, I can't wait to see what else happens within the story. I picked up the next continuation, and I'm just waiting for it to arrive. But overall, it was really interesting, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, if I'm not mistaken. But it was really good. The next two that I'm going to be speaking about are The Wish Granter. This is by CJ Redwine. Give me a second, please. Okay, I'm gonna continue. I apologize, but I needed water. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is one that also really did intrigue me, and that is Eliza and Her Monsters. I read this in one sitting. This is by Francesca Zappia. I have to admit that I enjoyed the main characters. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the web comic, was it? And, you know, once this does get exposed, I liked the take on it. I also loved her brother. I also love that we have an introvert and we follow her along this journey, and also how she connects with other people through the web, and then eventually how she connects with these people, like, you know, face to face. But I have to admit that one of the things that really I kind of didn't enjoy was his name Cooper. No, his name was not Cooper. That's another book. The boy in love interest. There was a moment where he took what was happening to Eliza, and he turned it on what was happening for him. Like, it was more important his feelings than hers. And I was like, boy, this ain't about you, you know? And that was something that really took away from my enjoyment. But then he did redeem himself in my eyes, and also within the story. And I have to admit, I was like, okay, now you're good. But overall, I really did enjoy the story. I wasn't expecting for it to have an instance where it does the trigger warning for, you know, attempted murder, because there's a moment where she does try to take her life, and I was not expecting that, but it's near towards the end. But overall, I love the characters, and especially her online friends. They were so funny, and they were just great people that I have to admit that I loved. But this was such an interesting story, and I was not expecting it to, you know, read it in one sitting and also enjoy it as much as I did. So yeah, I think I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars, especially because of that that side character, that her love interest, that, you know, what I just said. So that was something that was just like, boy, what's wrong with you? The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is The Wish Granter by CJ Redwine. I also did love this. This is part of the Raven-inspired series, so we have different books within the world. This one was about Rumpelstiltskin. I have to admit there were shades of Rumpelstiltskin there, but the story does stand on its own. I really did love the main characters and also their sibling interaction. There were some moments that were also convenient, especially near the end, but I didn't care. I just loved it, and, you know, I love these characters. I have to admit that I've really enjoyed the villain, because we get to see, you know, his motives, his intents for him actually to be a villain. You know, he wasn't a villain just to be a villain. His story arc does get explained, and I have to admit that I have to praise him for that, because he was a really good villain. Like I said, there are a few things that are convenient in the end, but overall, it was interesting. We also have the main characters from the Shadow Queen that were, you know, like, you know, sneaked in there. So I have to admit that was really interesting to see them there. But overall, I enjoyed the story, and I want to continue with this series because it's something that's really interesting, and I can't help but praise them because they were just that good. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is one that I am freaking in love with, and that is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a story that is impactful, that is beautiful. It is told in verse, and I just have to admit that I loved everything. The Latin flair to it, the Spanish poems that are in here, the Spanish words that are in here. Also, to have yourself being represented in literature is something that I have to admit that's amazing, because there are a lot of things that Xiomara, which is our main character here, went through, that I have to admit that I have seen within my life, and also her dealing with these struggles, and the fact that she questions a lot of things because her mother is really religious, but she does question these religious aspects because she's like, am I willing to be fully committed into this? And also the fact that she discovers poetry, especially by her teacher, that, you know, she exposes this world to her, and, you know, she is really good at telling her, you know, you need to tell your words because these are words that are impactful and you need people to listen to these words. And I just loved her journey throughout this story. It was just so beautiful, especially her brother, when her brother also defended her. I would have loved a little bit more of the family dynamics, but we do deal with a story that does touch on, you know, an abusive mother, and, you know, how the teenager does deal with it, and also the religious aspects, like I said, the fact of body image, also how, you know, to learn yourself even though you're curvy. I have to admit that the topics that were being exposed in this book were interesting, and I just freaking loved them. I loved everything about it. I loved our main character, and I cannot wait to actually like reread this book. I think I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because there were a couple of things that I was just like, but overall, that wasn't enough for me, for, you know, to take away from my enjoyment of the book. The next one that I'm going to be speaking about is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. For it being a debut, I have to admit this was a really good story. I'm noticing that as of late, this has a lot of debatable issues, but I enjoyed the story. The writing isn't anything that's, you know, mind-blowing, but I love Star as a character. I love what she was willing to do, her coming of age story, what she was willing to stand up for, and, you know, these facts that she was dealing with her double-sided life, because she's one person with her friends at school and she's another person with the people in her neighborhood. So it is really interesting how she dealt with these two topics, and also how she discovered herself in the end, and also their fight for injustice. And it was just such an impactful read, especially those last 100 pages are a page turner. Oh my god, they were just really heart-wrenching at times. I was like, oh, please don't let anything happen to them. But it was a wild ride. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything about it. And, you know, the topics that she dealt with and that she decided to write about are some things that I have to praise, because, you know, these are topics that need to be shedded, you know, a little bit more light, and I love it that it's being included in a lot more YA stories. So that's something that I have to praise. I have not seen the movie, but I really, really, really want to see that one. The next 4 that I'm going to be speaking about, and there's 2 that are part of a series, but the one that I'm going to be speaking about first is Love, Life, and the List by Casey West. With this book, I noticed that I will read more books by Casey West. This was such a fluffy, cute contemporary read when I needed it. I also love the family dynamics. I loved how, you know, even though I loved the grandfather because he was so present in the story, and I have to admit he was just such a great character. How he also wanted to help their mother, because like she's dealing with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of anxiety within her, and, you know, there's just like they're brushing these problems under the rug, and it's something that they shouldn't have done. They should have exposed them from the beginning and got her help. But overall, at the end, you know, there are a lot of things that happen. But I have to admit that I do love our main character, Abby, and also the list that she does, because, you know, she does get her heart broken, and then she decides to do this list. And it's also nice that she follows this list along with her best friend. And also, like, there are times when, is this one the one that's Cooper? I think this one is the one that's Cooper. Oh my, yes, this is the one where we have Cooper. I wanted to smack Cooper at times because I was like, boy, like, realize what you have in front of you, honestly. This is where you have friends to lovers, and I really did enjoy the story. I loved everything about it. I loved that it was told right. And like I said, I love the family dynamics. I love the characters. I love that it was cute, fluffy when I needed it. And, you know, there are a few Casey West books that are hit or miss for me, but this is one that I enjoyed. I also enjoyed By Your Side, but this is one that it was so cute because of the family dynamics. I can't praise it enough because of that. And the next one that I'm going to be speaking about is Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This is a Viking-inspired story, so I really did enjoy it. I was going with this with high expectations because I really did love it. There were moments that I have to admit that were a bit infuriating because our main character, like, she goes through a lot of crap. There are so many things that are happening that sometimes you're just like, wait, is this convenient for the story or just convenient for the plot line to have something for us to be like, ooh and ah, and like, oh no. But overall, it was an interesting story. I loved, oh my god, I can't believe that I'm going to say this, but the hate to love in this story was one that I really did enjoy. I have to admit that I understood the motives for the things that he was doing, but it was an amazing story. I loved it from beginning to end. And also how we have, you know, the aspect of family. And family isn't just the ones that you're born with. You can create your own family along the line. And here we have a story where the main character, her brother has supposedly died, and she finds him siding with the enemy. So it's on her journey of discovering why is it that he's with the enemy, and also these two Viking clans to actually like unite and actually fight the real people that they're supposed to fight. So it was an interesting story. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I can't wait for the companion novel. I'm thinking it's going to be told by a specific character, but I'm not going to say. But overall, it was entertaining. I loved Ailin. Was it at the... I forgot her freaking name. But if I'm not mistaken, it's Ailin. I have to admit that I enjoyed her story. And even though there were some things that infuriated me, but... there were just moments where I was just fangirling, so I can't say that I did not enjoy it, because I did. And the final two books that I'm going to be speaking about are ones that I cannot recommend enough because they were just so amazing, and that is Labyrinth Lost and Bruja Born by Zoraida Cordova. These are stories that are freaking amazing, and they just have the Latino flair to it. The fact that we have brujas that we're following along different storylines, because in this one... oh, I'm sorry, in this one we follow Alex, and in this one we follow Lula. And the next one, the third installment, is going to be coming out, and it follows the one that I want, which is Rose. I can't wait to have Rose's story. But in Labyrinth Lost, we have our main character, Alex, who doesn't want to be a bruja. So on her death day party, which is her coming of age party, where her powers are going to augment, she decides to cast a spell. She's never done a spell before. She does a spell, it backfires, and she sends all her family into this in-between world. So she has to go on a mission to save her family from this in-between world before they're trapped there forever. And her journey, the female on female romance, that slow burn that it had, was just beautiful. I have to admit that I loved it. Everything from beginning to end. There are a few things that I really didn't enjoy, but it was something that I couldn't take away from it, because our main character Alex is really stubborn. I'm stubborn at times, so I can't, criticize her for that. But overall, it was an interesting story. And then I picked up Bruja Born. In order for you to read Bruja Born, you really need to read Labyrinth Lost, because Bruja Born deals with the aftermath of Labyrinth Lost, and also how Lula is trying to deal with certain situations that happened in her life. There is this ride that she's in, and the bus crashes, and all the people that are there, including her boyfriend, dies. It's not a spoiler because it's part of the synopsis. And also we follow these girls, how they go along in the journey, and also how a lot of people are being brought back to life and how they have to deal with this situation. Also the family aspects to it are beautiful. I just love everything about these stories. Also we have characters from the first one which are being brought back to Bruja Born. We also have further development within this series of the world per se, especially the world of the Brujas, which is something that I have to admit that I freaking enjoyed so much. So I can't wait to see what else is it that our author does with this series. But Rose is one that I really have to admit that I really did enjoy, and I know that the next installment is going to have like inspirations from the flora and fauna of Puerto Rico, so she's drawing aspects from that. So I can't wait for that book. It's something that I'm going to completely fangirl over. But overall, these are just amazing books, and this is an amazing series. It's called the Brooklyn Brujas series. I highly recommend them. This one has a revamp of cover. I do love the new cover, but unfortunately it was only in paperback. But I think that the covers do fit in well with the story per se. But overall, interesting story. The Latin flair to them, the family dynamics, the characters are just so lovable, and you can't help but praise them for nothing but good things to happen to them. So these are all my 18 books that I love for 2018. If you want to tell me which are your favorite reads, because we're already on 32 minutes. I apologize for this being so long, but I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, just tell me your favorite reads down below, and we'll chit chat. So peace.